because it is only China, the Belt and Road Initiative has such a big money to invest in other countries' infrastructure. So that's our big worry.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives with Nilo. I'm your host, Neil O'Sullivan. Previously in May, we reported on the large pro-democracy street protests in Taipei, Taiwan, in opposition to new legislative reform bills being hastily pushed through the Legislative Yuan, or Parliament, by the China-friendly Kuomintang Party, or KMT, and their smaller ally, the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP. The KMT-TPP combined majority was enough to carry the bills through Parliament in May and onto the next step of review by the Executive Yuan, or Cabinet. On the week of June 17th, the Executive Yuan vetoed the legislation, sending it back to the Legislature for reconsideration. As a result, the public protests, which have become known as the Bluebird Movement, returned to the streets around the Parliament, and on June 19th, we went there to find out more. Hello again. If this is your first time checking out our podcast, I'd highly recommend you listen to our earlier episodes on this topic, particularly the episode entitled Taiwan Stands Up for Democracy and Parliamentary Pandemonium and Public Protests, which we published back in May. You can find them on our blog site at pwnilo.com or by searching for Perspectives with Nilo wherever you get your podcasts. As I mentioned earlier, back in May, the controversial reform legislation was successfully passed by the legislature's combined majority of the KMT and TPP. The amendments aim to give lawmakers powers to subpoena private individuals and government officials, including the President, which could force them to hand over sensitive documents to lawmakers. The KMT and TPP say this is for better government oversight and to help combat corruption. It also introduces a contempt of legislature clause, which can impose fines and even prison for officials who disrespect Parliament. The latter has been heavily criticised by legal scholars, who say it goes far beyond what is normal in other democratic countries. After passing through the legislature in May, the bills appeared before the Executive Yuan, or Cabinet, in the next step of the process. The Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, of President Lai Ching-te opposed the legislation in the Parliament, and so it was no surprise when the Executive Yuan, with the approval of President Lai, requested the Legislature to reconsider these amendments on the week of June 17th, effectively vetoing the legislation and arguing that it would be difficult to implement because it violated various constitutional interpretations around the Legislature's scope of power. It also appears that the KMT and TPP opposition parties have put forward additional items for review, namely control of party assets, restoration of a pro-China TV station, and a number of major transportation projects and others. On Perspectives with Nilo, our goal is to present a balanced report, and we've been eager to hear from a KMT spokesperson on this topic. We've visited KMT headquarters, phoned and emailed multiple times. However, as yet, we have not been granted an interview with a KMT spokesperson. We went along to the protests at the Legislature on Wednesday, June 19th, and spoke with Assistant Professor Chen Fang-Yu from the Department of Political Science at Soochow University in Taiwan. He told me why the protests have returned and about the additional bills being proposed by the KMT that are causing concern.
Well, because after the Executive Yuan's veto, so the legislature will vote again to decide whether they will veto the Executive Yuan's veto. So there's a 3-day review, and the civil groups organize the protest again to warn not only about this particular bill about the legislative power, but also warn about a lot of different acts, including the party assets, including there's a new bill to restore a pro-China TV station, and a lot of a series of acts proposed by KMT. So this protest is not only about the legislative bill itself, but also it includes several others. That the civil group thinks that is dangerous in the coming months.
So the party assets I hear about, the pro-China TV, this is new, is it? Recently announced?
Not new. So there's a bill, but just because the focus more on the legislative power expansion, so people get less attention on that. Okay. So there's a pro-China TV called Zhongtian, which is withdrawn of their license several years ago because they violate a lot of laws, and the KMT want to restore that. And also they want to revise the bill for the TV broadcasting bill to allow more the pro-China TVs. So there's a lot of different protests. Yeah.
So currently pro-China TV is banned in Taiwan, is that right? Because I see in my hotel CCTV or CGTN is available, and Phoenix TV and other Chinese propaganda channels are available. So what is the difference with this particular law or request? Is it a terrestrial channel?
So no, that's different things. So first of all, yes, we do not have laws to prohibit the TVs from China. That is a problem. That's a big problem. Another one is that the current law we are discussing about is the current law that regulates the current TV stations in Taiwan. So Zhongtian is the one that violates a lot of TV programming. Like they have too much disinformation on that. So their license just withdrawn, and also it's highly pro-China as well. So but the KMT want to restore that. Yeah.
Okay, I hear in your speech you just give now, you talk a lot about Fu Kunqi and also about Hualien, and he's the king of Hualien and proposes some very big spending bills for large infrastructure projects on the East Coast. So what do you have to say about him? What do you think of these bills that he's proposing, these large spending bills for the East Coast?
So first, let me talk about the three bills he proposed. There's the high-speed rail all around the island, and also the big roads to Hualien. That is break through our central mountain, the very big one. So that will destroy our environment totally. That is first. And secondly, it will spend a lot of money. And he and the legislative speaker Han Kuo-yu, they propose to attract the so-called international BOT, international funding for that infrastructure. And the international funding is actually we guess it is all from China, because it is only China. The Belt and Road Initiative has such a big money to invest in other countries' infrastructure. So that's our big worry. And Fu Kunqi is a Hualien king, because in the long run he has a lot of resources. He introduced a lot of China's funding from China to the third country, and then to invest in Hualien. So that makes him very rich, very resourceful, and then he can build up his clientelist networks. And he has a lot of resources to buy the support from Hualien's people. And also he and his wife, currently the magistrate of Hualien, his wife had a company called Rongliang. And this company had a multi-billion investment plan in China, in mainland China. And they even signed the contract with a local government in Guangxi, I think, and several local governments. So they are highly connected to China. This is our worry. So, and this April, he led a group of KMT legislator to mainland China, and to meet with a high-level official from China's Communist Party. So that's our another worry. So after that, he proposed a lot of bills that is be requested by China. For example, there is a direct flight from Taiwan and Pingtan in Fujian province. Right after they came back from China, it's requested by China's officials. So we worry that China has influence by these local collaborators.
But apart from him having alleged interest in China, do you think the people of Hualien would like to have more investment on the East Coast? Would it benefit them? Do they feel that would be positive for them?
Yes. If you do the public opinion polls, then it will show that the majority of people still support the Hualien king, because he is a king. Whatever he did is correct. Okay. So But I think there's a informational asymmetry. So people do not know that the infrastructure will cause damage to the environment. Also, people do not know there's other ways to boost economy in Hualien. I don't think we need such a big infrastructure like high-speed rail to Hualien. Do you know that? I mean,
Yeah.
The eastern coast of Taiwan is the beauty, the nature, the mountains and the beaches. I mean the seas. So we do not need such a big infrastructure to destroy the environment. And if you do, then it will lose this attraction to tourists. But people do not understand in the long run. So I think it's more the government should have more communication and to persuasion to the local people.
The KMT, though, I mean, we hear a lot of, with these protests, we hear a lot of discussion about the KMT and their connections with China. This is a tweet that was sent out by the KMT's Twitter account back in just a week or so ago, 12th of June. And it says, the Republic of China Taiwan is a sovereign independent state. The KMT has no illusions regarding the communist intentions. The KMT supports a strong national defense and deep security relations with the United States. This sounds very pro-Taiwan. It doesn't sound pro-China to me. What do you make of this tweet?
Well, first of all, that is just a cheap talk. So, and if you see, you will see a lot of lies. For example, it says that KMT supports a strong national defense. It's wrong, because KMT oppose any of the measures to increase our national defense budget, and they oppose our indigenous submarine project, and they oppose our military reforms in the legislature. So it's just simply not true. So they do have a lot of cheap talks like this, and you see a lot from not only from tweets but also the major outlets like Foreign Affairs, Foreign Policies. They publish some articles about how KMT is dedicate themselves to the national defense. But what they did in the legislature is just the opposite. They are trying to oppose any of the military reforms. So that's just not true. Yeah.
I'm sure if Lai Ching-te or the DPP send a tweet like this, China will be very offended. They will say, these people are separatists. But when the KMT send this tweet, I don't see any response from the Chinese Communist Party.
And you will not see any of the KMT politicians to say this publicly. So you only see this on Twitter, on Facebook. So it's just a cheap talk. You for example, in the presidential election, we have debates, and President Lai Ching-te just asked other candidates from KMT and also TPP whether they recognize Taiwan as an independent sovereign country. They are not willing to say that publicly, and they are not willing to say that they are committed to the national defense. So I think the tweet just a cheap talk.
Okay. So speaking of tweets, there's another one here on a slightly different topic from Interprets China, CSIS, and it says that a scholar of cross-strait relations analyzes the role of public opinion on Taiwan's political system and seeks to discredit public opinion trends in Taiwan by suggesting they are manipulated through strategic question design and often purely a reflection of elite opinion. So they're basically saying that, I guess Taiwan public opinion, like people identifying predominantly as Taiwanese, people preferring the status quo and not reunification or whatever the term is with China, that this is maybe not true, and the questions that were asked weren't clear or whatever. I know you sent a Twitter reply to this. What's your take on this report and these comments?
This is a typical case that Chinese propaganda just camouflage as academic or policy paper. It is actually nothing at all match the standards of the academic or peer review. So, for example, you see that is a scholar published on CSIS. It's a very big think tank, also in the format of academic one. But actually, to read inside, everything is just groundless. So, for example, he criticized the public opinion polls of the manipulative questions. No, the question is very straightforward. So, for example, the identity question is, do you think yourself as a Taiwanese, Chinese, or both? That is very simple.
Yeah.
No room for manipulation. And also, do you think Taiwan is a sovereignty country? 80% of people say yes under the name of Republic of China. That's very straightforward. So there's no room for manipulation. So all of the criticism there are just baseless, and they just want to turn the propaganda into looking like a academic paper. So I think it's a shame that the publisher did not find out these wrongdoings.
And I think also these polls are conducted multiple times, maybe twice a year, or maybe more times. So the results are like over time. So there's multiple surveys, and consistently they say the same thing, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of different surveys, like the academic institutions or the private companies or maybe the media. There are tons of surveys just confirm the same result. That is, the super majority of Taiwanese people identify themselves as Taiwanese, and also we identify as ourselves as a sovereign country, and also 90% of people reject the one country two system, the proposal by mainland China. So that's just a fact, because we confirm that over and over again. So there's no problem at all.
That's Professor Chen Fang-Yu from the Department of Political Science at Soochow University in Taiwan, whom we spoke with on Wednesday, June 19th last. My thanks to Professor Chen for sharing his views and insights with us on Perspectives with Nilo. Legislative review of the bills continued until Friday, and so did the Bluebird Movement's street protests, despite the scorching heat and thunderstorms. Under Taiwan's legal system, a request for reconsideration can be overturned by a simple legislative majority. On Friday, June 21st, a majority of 62 votes, comprising KMT-TPP as well as 2 independents, rejected the Cabinet's request to reconsider the amendments to the law governing the Legislative Yuan's powers and amendments to the Criminal Code. This raises the question of what comes next. The ruling DPP say these reforms are unconstitutional, and that their next step will be to challenge them in court. Experts and analysts we've talked to have told us that an appeal to the Constitutional Court is likely, and if an appeal were lodged in June, it could be September or October before a verdict may be expected. DPP caucus whip Ker Chien-ming said that because a constitutional ruling could take some time, the caucus will also file a motion for a preliminary injunction ruling by the Constitutional Court to keep the amended laws from being implemented before a final ruling is delivered. The Bluebird Movement said that their efforts would also continue in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the KMT has also mobilised its supporters to stage counter-protests and what they are calling Blue Eagle action. We will continue to monitor the situation and report on any updates. So make sure you like, follow and subscribe to our podcast feed and social media pages so you don't miss out. And you can find all the details at pwnilo.com. In the meantime, thank you for listening. And from Taipei, Taiwan, Zai Tian.